Thanks, Jim. Well, again, good morning, everybody. It is good to be back in the land of the world. So if you don't know, I took a week off in Michigan, and then after that I went to church camp up in Bedford. I'll just do a refresher if it's been a while, if you've never been there. So I arrived about 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and then I got home about 4 o'clock yesterday. The general schedule for the day is wake up right around 7, eat breakfast around 8. Then we had a speaker come in, and we do a little chapel service type thing. We would break into our small groups, and so a small group was 2 counselors for about 8 to 10 students, and campers, I guess. This week was middle schoolers, and so in my group I think I had 3 boys and 5 girls, and then my cabin, of course, was all boys. So we would do small group for a couple hours, we'd grab some lunch, and then the glory of the day is called FOB, which is flat on bunk, which means you go back to your bunk and you lay flat and quiet, and it is glorious. None of my students in my cabin actually did that, but they were on their bunks and I got to sleep, so I didn't care. Then we'd wake up, we'd play a couple hours of games. You could go to the pool, play some basketball, play some soccer, do crafts, number of choices. After that, we would meet in our small groups for another hour, grab some chow. After dinner, it's called Vespers. Which Vespers, I didn't know what it was. I guess it's an ancient phrase for evening worship. And so Vespers is cool because it's a worship service, but it's entirely planned and led by the campers. So you have a bunch of middle schoolers planning a worship service and carrying it out, which is pretty cool. And they did a pretty good job. Every night, a different small group would be in charge. So then after Vespers, we would gather around the campfire, and then they just do a bunch of silly songs and skits. And then we would shower, have a little bit of cabin time at 10, and then 10:30 would be lights out, which meant they just kept talking in the dark. So that was pretty much our schedule. It was really cool. I had a really great time at camp. So I've never been to Bedford camp before, either as a camper or a counselor, and so this was a first for me, and I had a lot of fun. It was truly a good time, and my kids were they were awesome. Pretty proud of them. So what I'll do this morning, I'll just give you a couple episodes of some things that happened this week, and then I'll tie that into James. A few of the highlights from the week for me. Friday night we did a talent show, and the first one to get up was a young man. Just for the sake of anonymity, I'll give him a false name. His name was Jake. And so Jake got up there. He was 12, so he's on the younger side of all the campers, and he's kind of a little guy, and his brain goes about 3 times faster than everyone else. And so the whole week, he's just kind of been that nervous, awkward kid, and right off the bat, he's the first one for the talent show. And so he gets up there, and he is a math whiz. I mean, just blows everyone I know out of the water. And he has I don't even know what you'd call them. If you go the exponential, so like 2 to the 4th, 2 to the 5th, 2 to the 6th, 2 to the 7th, right? He's got them all memorized up to like the 12th, from like 1 through 12. I mean, he's just and you can see him, he's just calculating in his head. And then after that, he decided to just launch into some songs, right? And he sang so quiet you couldn't really hear him. But the best part was, as he's done with this, right, he's just put himself out there. He's kind of felt shy and timid all week, kind of felt awkward. And as soon as he's done and he walks off the stage, I mean, the room just explodes, right? And so you have all of these like vicious middle schoolers just all of a sudden cheering on this kid. I mean, you could barely hear. I mean, just everybody just exploding oh my gosh, that was so cool. Like, whoa, whoa. It was absolutely fantastic, right? Gave me warm and fuzzies inside. And it was like that the entire talent show. Every time another student got up, the room just exploded, right? Whether they were talented or not, just because everyone understood, like, wow, that takes courage to get up there, and we are going to support you for being brave. And so that was pretty cool. That was a highlight. That's a pretty good summary for the week. I mean, throughout the week, we had one bad camper that I know of, but I mean, everybody was, by and large, incredibly supportive of one another. I mean, I was expecting vicious middle school, and that's not quite what we met. In my small group, there was one young lady. She was 13. Her name, well, her fake name that I'm giving her, I'm just going to call her Tessa, because she reminded me of a book character named Tessa. Tessa this week, she latched onto my heart, and she has me wrapped around her finger. If she needed anything, I would get in my car and fly 100 miles an hour. She lives in Tennessee, so it's not going to happen, right? But to do anything. Throughout the week, Tessa, she's got me by the hand because she's just has such a terrible life. And so throughout the week, she was in my small group, and we had 3 or 4 talks where she just kind of unloaded on me of just the wreckage of her life. And most of it it's not her fault. Throughout her whole life, she's just been passed around from relative to relative. Many of her relatives mistreat her so bad that even after one talk, I had to file a report with CPS because I didn't have a choice. I'm a mandatory reporter when you're a counselor. Yeah, so she's living with her great-grandparents now. Her dad's out of the picture. Her mom is kind of in the picture, but kind of flaky. She was living with her aunt for a while. That didn't work out. And so she's just had a terrible life. And then on top of that, she's having surgery this week, and she may or may not have a genetic syndrome that causes early mortality. So it's just throughout the week, as I'm talking to her, she's making me doubt my faith. Is God really good? Because how can this happen to this poor little girl? And she's so sweet. She is just the most kind, caring people I've ever met. Just a total sweetheart. And so my heart just, it just crumbles, right? That being said, my faith was restored by another event involving her and my small group. And so the event was, by and large, the campers were good, but middle schoolers are middle schoolers, and so gossip abounds. And one particularly nasty rumor spread about Tessa that she and another boy were purpling. So if you don't know what purpling is, it's a euphemism for boys are blue, girls are pink. You mix the two, you get purple. And this just crushed her, right? To overhear in the bathroom a bunch of other girls just for no reason, for no basis, just spreading these nasty rumors about you. It just crushed her, right? And she's got all this other hardship at home too. And so to have that thrown on top of her, she was just devastated. Crushed. We were in small groups, and she was just sitting there, her head on the table, didn't give a rip what we were doing. Just devastated, right? And this is church camp, right? This is supposed to be the place where you can come in and you can be safe. And she walks in vulnerable, she puts herself out there, and then she finds rejection and scorn. So her and I kind of went outside, we chatted for a bit, she told me what was going on, unloaded some other stuff on me, and then I asked her, Well, do you think everybody believes these rumors? Right? I mean, do you think they're all true? Right? What about the other people in the room that we just left? What about them? And so I sort of convinced her, hey, can we go tell them and see what happens, them being the other members of our small group. So again, just more middle schoolers. And so she kind of tentatively agrees to it. And so we walk in the room, and the most beautiful thing I've ever seen happens. Right? I'm supposed to be like, big, strong, tough guy. I was bawling like a baby. And if I start now, it's going to be on film, so I better not. We walk in. She's kind of too overcome to really speak, so I'm trying to speak for her. I tell the group what's going on, how these nasty rumors are being spread about her, and then I watch as just at once all of these middle schoolers. One sec. Just one by one, they all begin to say, "We know they're false. We don't believe them," and I watch them just gather around, and they all hug her, and they reaffirm her. And they just accept her into the group. Yeah, this is what I was doing as I'm watching this. I mean, I could be... It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And to have it done by such young kids, right? I mean, 12, 13, 14, right? I mean, that's the most vicious years to grow up. And yet, all of these kids, they gather around and they say, "Yeah, man, I wish I could have been there. If I'd have heard it, I would have squished it." Or, "I heard it, but I didn't believe it. I knew they were false because I know you, Tessa. I know you wouldn't do that." And to see them all just absolutely reaffirm their love for this girl. Especially when at home she gets the total opposite, and she's constantly getting verbally torn down. And for her to be able to come to camp and by her peers be restored, I mean, that's fantastic. Yeah, that was getting to know Tessa and then watching this event take place was bar none the highlight of the week. It was absolutely fantastic, and I am sold on camping. I'll be back there every year I possibly can, because this is the kind of stuff that happens there. Another story. This one took place, and that wasn't the only beautiful story. That's just there were a number of other things that happened, and all throughout the week as sort of more and more became known about Tessa, and there were multiple groups held for people dealing with depression or anxiety or image or whatever to kind of come together and just talk with their peers. So there was that. After camp, on my way home, I got to experience Jesus again. So I was coming home. If you know where Bedford is, it's from here, you take 64 to 69, go hour and 15 minutes up 69, and then you'll hop on 50 and take it east for a while, and you'll kind of curve through all the hills, and eventually you'll get there. I was coming back from Bedford. I was probably about 10 miles shy of 69, and there just happened to be this woman walking along the side of the road with a duffel bag. And granted, if you remember how hot it was yesterday, right, that's not a great spot to be in. And it's sort of desolate, but there's plenty of cars whipping by. And so, my first pass, I kind of drive by, I look, and instantly I think, oh man, she could probably use some help. But I keep driving because I think in my head, well, I'm a guy, she's a girl, right, just some stranger. I don't want to scare her. I don't want to make her feel vulnerable. Maybe she's just out for a walk. Maybe it's recreation. I wouldn't want to be bothered if I was just walking. So I just kept going. And then, of course, it just keeps tumbling in your mind like, wait a minute, something doesn't add up. You don't just take a big duffel when you're going on a walk in the countryside. She didn't have her hand out. She could have put it out if she needed help. something didn't add up. And the whole day I'm thinking, I've got orphans and widows in my mind, this verse from James. And so about 5 miles later, I hit a light, I turned around, and I started driving back. And I said, if she's still there, I'll give her a ride and take her as far as I can. So I turned around, headed back, and the whole time, you know how time sort of slows down when you're anxious, right? And so every mile seems to stretch farther and farther. And so at each mile, I'm just secretly hoping, not a great character trait of mine, secretly hoping that somebody else would do it, right? That I would pass the spot and somebody else had already picked her up, so I didn't have to deal with it. But of course, no one had. And so I pass her again, I pull over, I pick her up. She hops in the car, and then shortly into the conversation, she finds out I'm a preacher, which has interesting effects on people. There's a buddy of mine who's got a joke. Whenever he flies on a plane, if he feels like talking, he says, "Oh, I'm a teacher." And what do you teach? "Oh, about the brokenness of humanity and whatever." If he doesn't feel like talking, he says, "Oh, I'm a preacher." And then people don't talk to him. But she finds out I'm a pastor, and then she doesn't get silent. The opposite response is people then just unload, right? And then they throw in whatever religious jargon they know so that they think we're not judging them, which we never are. But so she just kind of unloads her life story on me. And what happened is she had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, so she just started walking. It was a 14-year relationship of abuse, and so she just started walking. She had to get out of there. She had ended up losing custody of her son because she ran into medical issues, and she lost her job. So she was walking to Terre Haute because there she could get another ride to Indy to go meet up with her son. I ended up, she said, "I want to get to 41, then I'm going to head north." So I just passed 69, dropped her off in Vincennes, and then I headed back here, and she went the other way. But she just kind of unloads the story on me about she grew up in a terrible home. Her mother was a heroin addict, didn't really care about her. She bounced around from home to home to home. And the whole time I'm just thinking like, wow, is this going to be Tessa? And this gal that I picked up was, I don't know, maybe 45. Is this going to be Tessa in 30 years when she grows up? Like, because of her upbringing, is this, the life that she's going to face? And then, this woman who I picked up, her name was Emerald. She was fleeing from the abuse, and then also a lot of her friends just kept trying to push their own drugs on her, and so she's fleeing from addiction, right? But to do so, she just has to start walking, making herself terribly vulnerable, defenseless, helpless. It was just kind of the two events of meeting both Tessa and Emerald. It just kind of does something to your soul. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of, it plucks something in you that makes you like, well, why does it have to be like this? Like, why is it, is there no help for these people? Like, is there nowhere that they can go? Why is it that this woman who's doing the right thing, right? She's fleeing an abusive relationship. She's fleeing addiction, right? She's trying to get back to her son and willing to walk 500 miles to do it. Why is it that she has to be put in the vulnerable position? How come she has to expose herself to danger, right? Shouldn't it be the abusive jerk, right? Shouldn't he have to hit the road walking, right? Why is it that Tessa has to endure all this hardship? Shouldn't it be her just no-show parents? Shouldn't it be her relatives that refuse to take care of her? Shouldn't they be the ones crying and in pain? Shouldn't they be the ones on the road? Like, it's just, something's off, right? Something's not right. And it brought this verse to mind, coming out of James. It says this: "My dear brothers, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accepted. And this next part, these next few verses, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like a man who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and then he forgets what he looks like. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, he will be blessed in what he does. If anyone considers himself religious and yet does not keep a tight rein on his tongue, he deceives himself, and his religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And if you want to know what he's talking about, just read the next chapter. But that line, don't be hearers, be doers. And you want to know what doing looks like? Well, you find the orphan, you find the widow, and you take care of them. And so I need your help. I need your help to make this happen. Right? See, the magic of camp is that it creates a safe haven from the world, right? Where people, the campers and the counselors, the people that go there, they feel free to be vulnerable and to be honest. It's a place of rest and refreshment from the world so that we can go there, be healed, and then go back into the world to once again die for the world. But dying, self-sacrifice, selflessness, they're all painful, right? Camp is a place to heal so that we can heal from our wounds and then get back out there and take another lashing. And is church like that? Like I asked Tessa, hey, and she's involved in a church. Like, hey, is there anyone at your church you feel comfortable talking to like you talk with me? There wasn't. What about, you rode here with your friend, her mom's a pastor. Could you talk to her? No, I just don't really feel comfortable. All right, why is it that Emerald, she tells me she's got a preacher friend. She tells me she has friends in church. Why is it that she had to hit the road walking? Right? Why is it that children, why do we have to set up an entire week-long camp to create a space that's safe? Isn't that what we're supposed to be here? Isn't that what the church is supposed to be? A place where we can come in, I can feel safe and secure, I can rest, and then I can get back out there and take another beating. But I can come in here and I can feel safe and secure. Right? But if I'm honest, I don't feel safe being weak in front of you all. I don't feel safe being vulnerable. I'm being vulnerable right now and it's terrifying. Right? I don't believe that if I were to walk into this room and really reveal my brokenness, that I would be met with grace and mercy and forgiveness. And I am not the only one. I think every single one of you feels the same way. I think every single one of us in here, we're like an iceberg. And I'll show you that top 10%. I'll show you what I want. But I ain't going to show you the deep, dark stuff. I ain't going to reveal to you my real brokenness. I'll show you what I want you to see, but if you really knew me, I don't think you'd really accept me. And if religion is to look after the orphan and the widow, right? To find those who are broken, who are oppressed, who are helpless, and to get after them, to help them, right? I don't know how we can do that. I don't know how we can help people who are vulnerable when we're so terrified to be vulnerable ourselves. And I can't do this for us, guys. I can't create a safe environment on my own. Right? I can't be the linchpin that holds this whole thing together, right? I know my predecessor was absent, right? And I know you hired me and you wanted me to come in here and be a glue, and I will glue as much as I can, and I will hold this place together. But I don't know where I'm going to be, right? I might deploy next year and get blown up by an IED, right? I can't be the thing that holds us together, right? You guys, I will do everything in my power, but I can't create safety and security. We have to do that. We have to create a place where it is okay to be vulnerable. We have to create a place where it is okay for someone like Emerald to walk through those doors and know I'm not going to be judged because I'm a lone woman walking with a bag on my back. I won't be judged because I'm homeless. We must create a place where someone like Tessa can walk through those doors and just feel it's okay to be broken here. Right? She felt that at camp. We've got to make that real here. I don't expect it to happen overnight, right? If it did, I would be scared. Right? But we have got to work toward that. We have got to figure out a way to create a culture where it is safe to be broken, where it is safe to let your guard down, where it is safe, maybe not 100%, but can we at least show 15% instead of just that top 10? Can we do that? I don't know how to make that happen. We have to make that happen. That's our job. And if we can do that, if we can be weak with one another, then just maybe we've got a shot at doing something for the orphan and the widow. Would you pray with me? Father God, I pray for grace and mercy. I pray for humility. I pray for the courage to be vulnerable. I pray that you would so convict us of your grace and mercy, that we would be so moved, that we would so believe that you actually forgive us, that you are actually not angry, but that you cherish us with a radical love that cannot run out. That you are so crazy about us that you actually became one of us and then died on our behalf. I pray that we would believe that the prodigal parable is actually true and that you actually are the Father who, when we repent, comes running for us. And if we can believe that, then maybe we'll believe that that our friends will accept us too. And then maybe, just maybe, we can accept those who aren't our friends, but just might become them. And so I pray for grace, for mercy, for forgiveness, and for courage. I love you, and in your precious Son's name I pray. Amen.